Welcome to the Language Alchemy Podcast, and thank you for joining me today. This is your host, Alejandra Siroka, a transformative communication teacher and coach who is devoted to helping multicultural individuals, change makers, and couples engaged in personal growth transform their lives and relationships through conscious communication. A lot of us have heard that we should never talk about two topics, religion or politics. Most likely, you've heard that at some point in your life. And it is precisely our inability to have healthy conversations about difficult topics such as religion or politics that has led us where we are today. At this point in our human history, our whole world is divided. In the United States, where I live, we had a pivotal election, and most families are divided. This is not just anecdotal. I'm not saying this only because that's what I hear from most of the people around me, including my communication students and clients. No. Actually, a survey from October 2024 from Pew Research showed that 82% of Americans report experiencing political divisiveness in their families and communities. 82%. That's a very high number. And my question to you is, if we keep avoiding difficult topics, how are we going to learn to address them? Having different political views is not a problem. In fact, it is healthy to have people who see the world, the problems of the world, and the potential solutions in multiple ways. It's time to learn to have healthy conversations about politics with our family and friends. And that is what I'm going to teach you today. I'm going to give you 7 tips so that you can have healthy conversations about politics with your family and friends. Before I give you these 7 tips, I want to tell you that as you hear them, think of at least 3 tips you would like to implement in your own conversations with your family. To keep you accountable, I invite you to email me and share with me which 3 tips you will try. You know, I love hearing from you. I spend hours thinking about what content would be useful for you in these podcasts. And when I hear back from you, I feel delighted. And how do you email me? Well, if you are on my mailing list, you have my direct email address. If you aren't, what are you waiting for? When you join the Language Alchemy mailing list, you get not only direct access to me, but you also receive important communication tools you can put into practice right away. Yes, every Wednesday when you open your inbox, like Martina, one of my newsletter subscribers, said, you get set up for the whole week. And when you are on the Language Alchemy mailing list, you also get first dibs on any of my programs, and you get invitations to participate in free events and win opportunities to work with me and receive my direct coaching. I do not have these invitations anywhere else. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go to languagealchemy.com and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. And now let's explore these 7 tips to have healthy conversations about politics with your family. Number 1, check your goals. Why do you want to talk about politics? Do you have an intention such as being curious, open, friendly? Or do you have an agenda such as trying to be right, shaming the other, or convincing them of something different? Intentions are the foundation of relational communication. Agendas are the foundation of transactional communication, and they lead us to divisiveness. If you have intentions, then your intentions will direct your communication to asking questions and saying statements such as, I would like to understand what led you to skip voting this year. Or, I would love to hear your opinion about climate change, even if you think I have a different opinion. Or maybe, I can see we're both very passionate about this topic, even though we can have completely different views. But you know what? I'm really glad we can talk about this as family members. Tip number 2, express your intention out loud. No one can read your mind. When talking about politics, it's super important that you are explicit about your intention. When you communicate your intention out loud, that serves as both the foundation to ground your conversation and also as its North Star to determine the direction of the conversation. Now, avoid expressing your intention with a negative phrase like, I don't want to start a fight, or I don't want to offend you, but starting a conversation about a difficult topic with a negative makes it extremely hard for the brain of the person listening to keep the conversation positive. So when you express your intention out loud, you communicate it in the positive, in the affirmative. Tip number 3, focus on similarities, not on your differences. You may vote for different candidates or vote differently on ballot measures. Yet, if you go beyond the surface, you might find out that you and the other share the same values. You simply have different ideas about how to fulfill them. So, for example, you may find out that you both value the right for all adults to vote. Or you may discover that you both agree on the value of accepting one another both at the level of a family as well as the country at large. And if you want to know about the values of the other person, let's say you are against the death penalty and you hear that your relative is voting for it. Ask them a question about their values, such as, what is important for you that leads you to vote this way? Find out what matters to the other person. Talking about values is very powerful. It can turn the conversation into a productive and connecting discussion. Tip number 4, stick to micro conversations. You don't need to solve the world right now. In fact, you're not going to. There's so many issues and you can't do it in one conversation. If you're in a family gathering, the reason for gathering was to celebrate, to be part of an annual ritual such as Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, or New Year's. Micro conversations about political topics are like planting seeds of connection that gradually allow you and your relatives to feel safe and connected with one another while you discuss something difficult. In time, you will be able to address these topics at length when you both agree to do so. I want to give you an example. I wanted to address the topic of xenophobia with a family member. I started my first micro conversation to talk about the values of love and acceptance. At another time, I had another micro conversation that built on that, and we talked about a fact, mobility in this current world. Then I built on that by having another micro conversation and giving a personal story. So we had a discussion about how emotional it was for me to move to the United States. Then we had another micro conversation in which we talked about my contributions as an immigrant in this country and also the contributions of other immigrants. Months later, we were able to have a deep conversation about the current hatred to immigrant groups and disinformation about immigration. That is the power of micro conversations. Number 5, disagree explicitly. As I said earlier, it is not only okay to have different opinions and views and be able to talk about them, it is useful and beneficial. But we get in trouble when we disagree unskillfully. So, for example, we attack the character of the other person and we say things such as, "You are so out of touch with reality if you think that way." Or we attack their point of view by saying, "That's ridiculous." Or we shame them by saying something like, "I can't believe someone like you would fall prey to these lies." Or maybe we get on a high horse and educate the other person. You should read this article about what real experts know about this topic. Ouch. All these ways of disagreeing are unskillful and divisive. if you want to disagree skillfully, be explicit that you're not agreeing with the view or the opinion you are hearing. You may say something like, I see it in another way, or I have a different opinion about that, or simply, I disagree with your view. And then you could ask the other person if they are willing to hear your perspective, your opinion, your point of view. If they say no, their no is most likely not a rejection of you, but it could actually mean having the bravery to say, I am not open to hear a different opinion right now. And of course, there could be other reasons for their no. And we have no idea what the reasons could be. But we could assume good intent. Like maybe they want to have a desire to have a pleasant time with you during this family event. Tip number 6, avoid couching your opinion as a fact. Acknowledge that your opinion or your perspective is just that. This will allow you not only not to take yourself seriously, but also to have more humility. When you talk about your opinion, you can simply say, my opinion is, or my view, or from my perspective, and then you share your perspective. Unfortunately, in our current social media world, we see a lot of people sharing their POV, their point of view, as a truth or a fact. Be very mindful of how you express your opinion. And of course, if you're sharing a fact, share your source. Now, if you're sure someone is going to get triggered because of the source of your fact, so for example, you listen to NPR as opposed to Fox News, and that could be triggering for someone, then present your source as having heard that in an interview with a researcher who was sharing the results of their work. And tip number 7, get comfortable with ambiguity. When having these conversations, there may not be a resolution. It's okay. Let go of the attachment of having a particular outcome. The fact that you are having a healthy conversation about topics with a family member is already beneficial to both of you. So enjoy your mature humanity as the main outcome, even if nothing else comes out as a result. And before we recap what you've heard in this episode, I want to give you a bonus tip. So, tip number 8, remember you both share something no one can take away from you. And you know what that is? Your humanity. All human beings want to feel safe, loved, accepted, and valued. You want that, and your relative wants that too. And even though you may disagree on how to go about getting your human needs met or your values fulfilled, you are both humans sharing a life and space. Now, if you get to a point in the conversation in which you find it hard to see their humanity, in that moment, picture your relative, your cousin, your uncle, your sister-in-law as a newborn baby or a child who has been handed to you to hold in your arms. Then notice how your heart softens, your face relaxes, your breath deepens, and your communication becomes more clear, more confident, and more compassionate. And now let's recap what you've heard in this episode. Today we talked about 8 tips to have healthy conversations about politics with your family during the holidays. These tips are: number 1, check your goals. Number 2, express your intention out loud. Number 3, focus on your similarities, not on your differences. Number 4, stick to micro conversations. Number 5, disagree explicitly. Number 6, avoid couching your opinion as a fact. Number 7, get comfortable with ambiguity. And number 8, remember your shared humanity. Now, did you decide which 3 tips you'd like to try? Do yourself and your family a favor and keep yourself accountable by emailing me the 3 tips you are going to put into practice. And remember, if you are subscribed to the Language Alchemy mailing list, you have my direct email address. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. Go visit languagealchemy.com. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thanks to Dana, Kari, Skip, Monica, Francisco, John, Elena, Elric, Mercy, and Juliel. Thank you for subscribing to the Language Alchemy newsletter this week. Until next episode, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary Lapo. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.